Hi everybody, welcome to today's round 6 recap of the Women's Grand Swiss. Can you believe that we are over halfway for the tournament being done? Which means everybody is fighting for those points. They know that they need them immediately. So yesterday there was no video, so a bit of a recap of what happened in round 5. The big things that happened, Bibisara Asaba beat Tanjonyi, the leader of the tournament, and came out literally the sole leader of the tournament. So she is in first place going into round 6. Vaishali also drew at a Muzychuk. Gordiachkina won for the 3rd game in a row, and she hasn't made a single mistake, blunder, or inaccuracy in all 3 of her past games that she's won, which is kind of insane. She is playing superb chess. She is on a roll right now. She started off a little bit slow, but now she has come back with 3 amazing victories. So going into today, we have Bibisara with the clear sole lead and a few players trailing behind her. Let's jump into the recap for today. The first game I have for y'all today is between Grandmaster Anna Muzychuk, who is currently 25-10, and she is facing International Master Bibisara Asaba, who is currently 24-69. We have Anna with the white pieces and Bibisara with the black pieces. Bibisara is also currently the sole leader of this tournament. She is in sole first place, so she is looking to maintain that lead. All right, so Anna with the white pieces, she starts us off with e4. We get c5, a Sicilian, c3, d5, e takes, queen takes, and knight f3. This is a mainline Alapin. G6, d4, bishop g7, knight b to d2, all very normal moves. And then finally, we get this type of structure with both castles and knight 2 to f3. After queen c7, we get queen e2, and now bishop g4, pending the knight. h3 trying to kick the bishop, bishop takes, and now knight to c6. Both players are just trying to develop all their pieces right now. Bishop to e3, knight to a5, bishop to b3 backing up, wants to take this way. And now you can see a bit of an imbalance in the position. Black has 4 pawns on the king side versus 3 pawns for white, and white has 3 pawns on the queen side and 2 for black, but these are doubled pawns. And now we get bishop d4, knight to d5, rook f to d1, bringing a rook to the center. Rook f to d8, saying, I'm going to do the same thing. Bishop takes g7, king takes, b4, all very normal stuff. This is a very nice structure for white. Even though these are double pawns, the pawns are very solid and protected, and there's not a clear way for black to win anything. g3, knight to f6, and now knight to e5. After a trade of rooks, we get now rook to d8, another trade of rooks, and after queen takes d8, we get queen to c4, trying to centralize the queen, and it's not very clear here how there is going to be progress made, whether it should be a trade of queens and go into a knight and pawn endgame, which can be a bit hard to calculate, or if we get a trade of knights and go into a queen and pawn endgame. So let's see what happens. After e6, this is a very solid move, just saying I'm going to defend your threat on f7 and going to just have my pawns be very strong. There is a bit of dark squared weaknesses, but it's not clear how you're going to exploit them. Anna plays a very nice move in queen to f4. She's basically setting up some traps, okay? After king to g7, she plays g4. If instead, say here, she plays something like c4, now would come, say she plays h6. This could be a very tricky way of winning something. If she just plays carelessly, Bibisara, then after queen takes h6 and if king takes, haha, I get to fork you, and I'm actually completely winning. So this would be the position from here. However, those are kind of tricks that are happening in the position that Bibisara would have to fall for. You know, those waiting moves of c4 and h6 don't have to happen. But that was just an example of what queen f4 is setting up. So she plays now after king to g7, g4, queen to e7, queen to d4, king to g8, and this is all very normal stuff, honestly. Both players really don't see a way of breaking into the position and trying to get an advantage over the other. This is just a very equal game. So after c4, knight to e8, queen to c5, offering a trade of queens. She says no trade of queens. b5, a takes, queen takes, and now white has fixed her doubled pawns. Queen to d1 check, king to g2, knight to d6, attacking the queen. Queen moves over. b6 is very, very tricky. Here, if you take, I am actually going to play knight takes c4. And if you take back like this, I'm going to play queen to d5, check you, and I'm going to win this knight back. So that was a nice way of being able to simplify, but Anna doesn't go into this. Instead, she does not take the pawn. After b6, she plays something else though. She plays queen to e3, and now knight takes, queen to d5, the same type of idea, but just a little bit different. And now king to g1 and queen takes c4, and so the b pawn is still on the board. Queen takes b6 now though, and the b pawn is gone, and king to g7, b4, h5, and now queen to c5, offering a trade of queens. Obviously, black is not going to take that trade, because if Bibisara takes here, after takes, the king is actually going to get distracted. This is called, I believe, the fox and the chicken coop type of method. And after, say, like king to f6, we would actually play here either g takes h5, or the queen c6 also works. After this, the king is going to have to run, and eventually the white king is going to be able to win these pawns, and this king is always going to be distracted by this pawn. So white would actually just win this. So she's not able to trade queens. Instead, after here, she plays queen to d3, and now we get g takes h5, queen takes h3, winning this pawn, and now queen to d4 check. So the material is even. However, there's definitely imbalances because these are 3 isolated pawns, but this is a passed pawn, and these are 3 connected pawns. So let's see how this goes. f6, h6, takes, queen to d7 check, king to f8, and now b5. Queen to g5 check, king hides, queen check, king moves up, queen check, king moves up, and now queen to f5 check, king to e3, and the white king is slowly walking over to that pawn. Queen to c5 check, king d3, queen b6, and this is where it gets a bit tricky, because now she gets to play king to c4, and the white king is now touching that pawn. And the difference here is Bibisara needed to play not queen to b6. She can play something else, like maybe e5. She plays queen to b6, and the difference, this looks okay, but you definitely don't have a centralization of your queen, and your queen is turning a bit passive. And now king to c4, walking over to the pawn, and g5. And now the very pretty move, queen to d4. And black's pawns are too slow, and white's king can run. So say we trade queens, okay? I'm going to go here, and then if you think that you can beat me, you're not going to beat me, because I am just in time to be able to protect the promotion square, and white would be completely winning here. I know you have more pawns than me, and they are connected, but they are too slow. They're too slow. You're not going to be able to beat me. Right after Bibisara played this, she actually kind of like started like looking in her hands like, oh my god, like I just blundered queen to d4, and Anna Muzychuk found it. They actually had a ton of time because this was move 51. They had a ton of time. I think she had like 20 something minutes, but she just missed queen d4, and Anna finds it after queen a5, queen takes f6, and white is able to win all of these pawns, and she was able to go on to win the game. After a couple checks, there was no more, and eventually, after f4, Bibisara resigned, and Anna Muzychuk wins the game. And Bibisara loses her first place, and now she is back in the running. After 50 moves, you play one wrong move, and the game is over. Chess is brutal, y'all. Oh my goodness. Rough loss for Bibisara. Moving on to our next game. All right, our next game is between Grandmaster and former Women's World Champion Antoneta Stefanova, who is currently 24-24, versus International Master Irena Bumaga, who is 24-23. So we have Antoneta with the white pieces and Irena with the black pieces. We see e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, all very normal stuff. And now g3. A very weird move. I've never seen this. The reason it's kind of weird is because white already can get this bishop out pretty easily. So it's very used to being on this diagonal. And then when you move it to this diagonal, it's just kind of not always very well placed here. And so g3 is just a very odd move. It's rarely ever seen. But okay, we get knight to f6, d3, d5, e takes, knight takes, bishop g2, bishop e7. Everybody's developing, bringing our pawns. We get a bit of a trade, some trades here. And after bishop f5, here, she's supposed to play rook f4. But she plays rook to c4, which makes a bit of sense. You're attacking the bishop, but you also could have attacked the bishop if you would have moved here. And then after here, you keep your advantage a bit, because after queen to d7, now you have rook takes b7. And you're going to win this pawn. So this would have been an idea here, but she doesn't go for this. Instead, she goes for rook to f4, or sorry, rook to c4 instead of rook to f4. And now she gets to move her bishop back, and now she goes rook f4, which I thought was just like maybe a bit of a waste of time, but okay. Bishop is forced to move. They move to e6, attacking the a pawn. Rook takes b7, bishop takes a2, c4, trying to lock the bishop in. And now knight to a5, attacking the rook. Rook to b5, attacking the knight. Knight takes c4. Queen to c2 was a bit of a weird move. She could have just played rook takes f6 here is actually really pretty, because after rook takes f6, queen takes f6, and now you can play d takes c4, and you're going to have a rook and pawn versus two minor pieces, bishop and knight, but you get a bit more of an advantage with white here, but she doesn't play like this. Also, this bishop is about to turn into a beast, and this bishop kind of sucks. Maybe here, actually, you're just gonna play bishop takes c4, so I guess it doesn't suck right now, but this bishop is just better. So we don't see this, though. We see her play after knight takes c4, queen to c2, and now knight to d6, attacking the rook. Rook moves over, bishop e6, knight moves in, opening up the bishop, looking at the rook as well, and rook takes d4, still attacking the rook. Rook to c8, moving out of the bishop's view. h4, queen e7, bishop g5, we get a block, bishop to f4, rook f to d8, and mind you, black is up a pawn right now. And so we see knight to f5, bishop to b7, aiming at the rook, knight to d4, rook takes, bishop takes, and rook takes c7. And so here it is even material, and we have three pawns over here, we have a pawn here and a pawn here. Both are passed. We shall see which one makes more of a difference. So bishop moves out of the way, was being threatened. Bishop e3, attacking the rook. We get, I'm going to skip through these moves a little bit because it's going to get, this is a really long game. And so you guys can see we have a few trades. We have, white has a clear pawn up. We get a few more trades of the pawn structure changing. And now, this is a really long game, y'all. Just bear with me. We're moving along. Everybody's shuffling. Players have both hit time control. This is now move 55. We're still going. White is going to try and push that pawn, that extra pass pawn, but she can't do it yet. She's going to keep trying to rearrange her pieces, and the players are going to keep shuffling. And then eventually, we're going to get to here. And both players had roughly 2 minutes on the clock, okay? White wants to push her pawn and promote, and black is trying to not let that happen. And so bishop to d3, bishop to e7, rook to g4, rook to f3, bishop to f5, rook e3 check, king to d7, blocking the pawn, very nice, rook to a3, and now rook to f4, rook a7 check, moves back. You cannot push yet because you will just, here, because you'll just lose your bishop. So she can't push yet. Bishop to f8, moving the bishop, trying to push the pawn. And rook to d4, rook to f7. We get a few more moves. And now it was very much a time scramble for both players. King to f8, king to d7, trying to blockade once again. Rook is trying to come in and sweep over to the other side. We get rook g1, king to g7, bishop to e4, and now rook to f8, rook to d1, rook to f4, attacking the bishop, rook to e1. And this was the mistake, because now bishop to f8, bishop d3, rook to f7 check. Where are you going to go? King to e8, trying to go to the back rank to stop promotion. Guess what? d7 check. Where are you going to go? You're going to try and block. Bishop to b4, and guess what's coming? After rook b1, bishop to d4, black resigned. And the idea, which is why she resigned, is basically black is going to try to hold off However, after, say, bishop to a6, bishop to f6, forcing the king to move out of the way, and after king c7, I will be able to promote, and this is just completely unstoppable. This was a 88 move game that was very back and forth, very kind of pretty even throughout the game. And then in low time, Irena just blundered that, and it was very rough. She had like no time left. Both players were scrambling, and Antoneta was the one to come out with the win. She is now 4.5 out of 6, so she is very happy to win this game. All right, moving on to our next one, which was a matchup I've been looking for. Oh my god, I have been waiting for this one. All right, y'all, I have been looking forward to this game. My eyes were tracked on this game all day. It is between international master Vaishali Babu, who is currently 24-48, versus Alexandra Goryachkina, who is 25-58. Goryachkina had a very slow start to this tournament. However, she had 3 straight wins, so she's coming off very strong chess. And going into this, Vaishali has also had a very nice tournament, and we shall see what this one brings. So, starting us off, we have Vaishali with the white pieces, and she plays e4. We get e5, knight to f3, knight c6, all very normal stuff. We get an Italian, we get c3, and now knight to f6, d3, d6, castles, h6, all very normal stuff, each player developing until we get to around this point. We have a few more trades, bishop c5, and now she has a choice. She can either play d4 and try and blow up the center, or she can play bishop to e3. Vaishali goes for d4, trying to blow up the center, and now we get e takes, and here she can decide to take with the pawn or with the knight. If she takes with the pawn, after c takes, the bishop gets to come here though, and that's going to be an annoying bishop. After, say, bishop to d2 blocking, she can actually play d5. And now, if you take here, I get to now play, if I take back this way, the knight is going to come into d5, and now white has an isolated pawn, and this can become a weakness later on, so I think this is what both players were thinking about. They took some time here, but instead, she plays knight takes d4, and we get bishop takes, queen takes, knight c5, queen moves back, queen to d7, queen to c2, knight to g6, and bishop to e3. And everybody's trying to develop queen to c6, attacking the pawn, knight to d2, defending, rook f to e8, attacking, bishop to d4, defending, and inadvertently from the rook on e1, knight to f4, and rook to e3, and now d5, and the queen is trying to swing over to g6. There's an idea there. Here, Vaishali, if she falls for pawn takes, actually it's going to get pretty tricky, because if queen takes, I'm going to be doing the same idea as if I would have gone to g6. I'm going to be attacking this square basically, and then white has to defend pretty well. After knight to f3, rook takes e3, bishop takes, knight takes h3, check, and takes queen takes f3, bishop takes c5, and it looks here, even though it looks like black hangs a piece, there's actually a crazy continuation after rook to a6 with the same idea of swinging my rook around and trying to have mate threats. King to h2 though, and we're going to get a few checks, and if you can try and repeat, or if after you try rook to g6, I'm going to go rook g1 trade, and now I'm actually just going to win your bishop back. And it would have been okay. And she would have actually been up a pawn this way. So I think that's why she doesn't take the pawn. This is a very crazy continuation over 10 moves. She doesn't go for any of this though. She does not take the pawn here. And instead, she just plays bishop takes c5, very principled. And now after queen takes, rook a to e1, doubling up. Rook e6, knight to b3, attacking the queen. Queen moves out of the way. Knight to d4, attacking the rook. Rook takes here. Rook takes, we get a few trades. And now we get a queen trade. And now knight to d3 attacking the pawn, b3 defending, and king to f8. Rook e3 attacking the knight. Knight moves over, attacking. Then the future attacking the b pawn. The knight is defending, so it's fine for now. King to f1, rook to e8. And now here, it looks very draw-ish. I would prefer, I think, to play white here, just because my knight's a little bit better. And my king is probably going to be a little bit better, especially after king e2, which is what she plays. But we get knight to e4, and the players are able to just make this a draw. They just shuffle their pieces a bit, and this was ending up into be a draw. So draw between these two players. This was a very exciting game. I was excited to see how they played against each other. Vaishali held her own. She is on fire. I am loving her tournament play so far. She is on her way to that Grandmaster title for sure. She just has to hit 2,500, so she is almost there. All right, next game is between International Master Olvia Fatelieva, who is 2393, versus Grandmaster Elizabeth Peitz, who is 2484. We have Olvia with the white pieces versus Elizabeth with the black pieces. Well, let's see what happens. All right. E4, C5, knight to F3, A6, C4, E6, and D4 taking up the strong center. But no, C takes D4, knight takes, and knight to F6 attacking the pawn, defending the pawn with bishop D3, queen to B6 attacking the knight, and knight moves back to B3. We now get D6, knight to C3. Everything is pretty much under control. All the players are doing is kind of just shuffling their pieces, developing. I'm trying to get a bit of an advantage. Olvia actually has a nice advantage here, but after knight takes d3, we get queen takes, and now queen to b8, and after castles, rook f to d1 actually is just a little bit worse. Here she could have played f4 and just really tried to strike the center and put more pressure. However, she goes for rook f to d1, which honestly, how can you fault her? Bringing a rook to the center just makes sense. Bishop to d7 and queen to g3, bringing some force over to the king side. Bishop c6 attacking the pawn. We get f3 defending the pawn and rook to c8. Going to the semi-open file, and now rook a to c1, also doing the same thing. Bishop to e8 moving out of the way, and now knight d2, g6, b3 defending her pawn, and knight d7 attacking the bishop, knight to a4 defending, knight to e5 trying to centralize the knight, f4 finally attacking the knight, and it makes sense with tempo. Bishop takes a4, f takes e5, bishop to e8, and so we have a trade of minor pieces, and black has the bishop pair. Knight to f3, d takes e5, and knight to g5. And here was the mistake. Elizabeth was up a pawn, and she plays f6. And here, everything was pretty much under control. And this is move 25. The player still had a ton of time left, but the idea that she missed is queen to h3, attacking the h-pawn. And after f takes g5, even though you're winning that knight, I now have queen takes e6 check, bishop blocks, and bishop is gone on e7. Queen takes, rook e8, queen takes g5, and everything is falling. Queen to c8, rook to d6, h6, it does not matter. Rook takes g6, bishop takes g6, queen takes, king h8, queen takes h6, king moves over, and rook to c3, and Elizabeth resigned because there is just really no stopping the infiltration that is coming in. It is going to be a loss, and this was a very beautiful game by Olvia. This is very nice, and honestly, it's really nice to win when you rook lift. Like, oh, that's so nice. So good win on her part. She had a very clean game. She pounced when the opportunity came, and she never let go. So win goes to her. She is now currently 4 out of 6, so that is great on her part. She is chasing that lead. All right, this game is between two international masters. We have Efromsky with the white pieces and Mongul with the black pieces. Both of these players rated around 2,400. Efromsky with 2,447 and Mongul with 2,366. We're going to see e4, c5, knight to f3, all very normal stuff. We have a Sicilian, very normal. We have all developing moves. We have castles queen side, imbalances, e5, attacking the knight, knight to d5, and now h3. After knight to h6, moving back, f5, and black is not kingside castled, nor queenside castled. I doubt that she's going to queenside castle, but she has not castled, and things are starting to blow up in the center. Bishop to b7, bishop d3, h4, queen takes h4, queen takes e5. So you get to win my h-pawn, but I get to win your e-pawn. F takes e6 now. D takes. Queen to e1 offering a trade. And we get a trade of queens. And now knight to g4. Bishop to f5 saying, hey, you're pinned. You wish you could take my bishop, but you cannot. Knight g to f6. We get a take, take, take. And now here, knight to e7. And black has a knight. and white has 2 pawns for the knight. However, that is a piece. So she basically offered a trade, I say very lightly, because she's kind of down a piece. So bishop to c5, I think maybe she thought she could win back her piece, but after rook to d8, rook to e2, rook to h4, and there is no way of winning back that piece. So she has 2 pawns with a piece, rook h to e1, rook to e4, and now we have a trade of rooks, and we get a bit more of a transposition. After takes here, we have 2 pawn trades, one on each side of the board. Bishop to c4, pinning the knight. Knight takes h3, b3, knight to f4, attacking the rook. Rook moves over, and now knight to d5. And she does not want to trade her lovely bishop, so bishop to d2, bishop g7, and now knight to c5. We have a few more moves, and the players are about to hit move 40. She plays a3. And here, she could go for possibly a2 check, and the king is forced to stay over this way. If not, if you go this way, I will take here, and we will have this, and I will be very happy to trade off your bishop, and this should be a win for black. But we don't see her play this, though. We instead see, after a3, rook a8, which makes a lot of sense, attacking the bishop, and now rook to e6 defending, and king to d7 attacking, rook to b6, bishop to d4, rook b7 check. King c6, though, is where the mistake was made. Here, she needed to play king to d6. And doesn't this look insane? Just one square away blows your whole entire advantage. Because now, it's going to get very complicated. But here, at least, there wasn't a forced trade. Because now, what she did play in the game, king c6, forces now rook takes e7, rook takes a6. And now, it's a bit tricky on how you're supposed to win this as black. So rook e6 check, forcing a trade of rooks, and now bishop takes c3, bishop takes c3, and white is just saying, I'm okay with having 3 pawns for your bishop. I am going to win your g-pawn, and it's going to be fine. So this is the endgame that they went into, which is exactly what happens. The bishop is able to control all of those pawns on the queen side. And now we have a few running, but they're not going to be able to make it. And once the bishop takes, the king took, and this game was a draw. I just thought this was pretty crazy of how just like one small move of your king to this square or this square just completely drew the game. This was very complicated, but it ended up being a draw. So these are the results from round 6. We had a ton of upsets and a ton of decisive results. So we had Bibisara losing to Anna. We had a draw here, draw here. This game was pretty cool, but it ended up being in a draw. A draw here, which was a crazy game. Antoneta coming out with the win. A few more games. I'll scroll for y'all to see what happened. Oh, this game was insane. Polina literally had to win with knight and bishop, which she did, and she made it with knight and bishop, and that is just so hard. And so congrats to her on being able to do that, because that is really difficult. What else? A ton more decisive results. And yeah, so pause if you want to see any of the results. So that was the games from round 6, y'all. Let's go to the standings. All right, after round 6, these are our standings. We have Anna Muzychuk in clear first with 5 points. She is leading the pack. She actually has like no stakes in this because she's already qualified for the candidates, but might as well win some money. We have a 4-way tie for second. Vaishali, Bibisara, Antoneta, Alexandra, Goryachkina. We have a ton of people with 4 points. Like a ton of players with 4 points. And then we have a ton of players with 3.5, a ton of players with 3, and then we have going into 2.5, 2, and then 1.5, 1, and then half a point. So a ton of players fighting. We still have, honestly, this is anybody's game. A ton of people just trailing by half a point and 1 point. So this could go either way. We shall see what happens. I will see y'all tomorrow for round... Oh, not tomorrow. We're off. I'll see you on Wednesday for round 7. I hope you guys enjoyed the recap and have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye.